Hi everyone, this is Daniel Torres Dwyer here at the FMCG guys, getting used to this new setup of having to be like on TV. If you see me uncomfortable, it's normal, but it's the first time I do that. But thankfully I'm accompanied by Sam Knights from SMG, so I don't know if it's the first time for you to be in a setup like this, probably not.
I've done it a couple of times before, but this is looking pretty professional.
Yeah, with the logos and everything.
It looks like we're at a movie set.
High pressure. This is getting real now.
Yeah,
it's not only a side hustle.
We're
anymore.
elevating it.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for inviting me to this event.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for coming.
I know it's the first time you do it.
Yeah.
By the way, just for some extra context, it's first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
so
it's really early.
The action still has to happen, so we can't arrive to any big conclusions. Yeah, I mean, first of all, what took you to organize this event, the Retail Media Summit UK?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's such a new industry, isn't it, retail media? And there's so much chatter going on. There's a lot of really informative stuff out there, but there's also a lot of hype.
Yeah.
And it struck us that we needed to bring the industry together in the UK to start working and developing our knowledge together.
Yeah.
And we went out to the US a few times this year, met your counterparts out there, Brian and the guys.
And lucky you. Was that a grocery shop? Or
grocery shop, yeah, we went to grocery shop talk, and then we also went to a couple of events run by P2PI, the Parts Purchase Institute.
Yeah.
And we were talking to them and said, wouldn't it be great if we were to bring what they did there, which was a really great kind of session, to the UK. So the idea started, I think, earlier this year, and then grew legs and arms, and here we are today.
Yeah. And what kind of guests will we find here today?
It's amazing. I mean, the response has been incredible. We had a capacity of 150. We had, I think, about 500 people apply to attend.
Not bad.
Yeah. And so we've had to limit it only to FMCGs and retailers this time round, and obviously the sponsors. But it means that it's a really high quality audience today.
Yeah.
And because it was really sold out, I think next time we do it, we're going to have to find a bigger venue.
Yeah, well, it's good to start with some degree of exclusivity as well, and go from there.
That's what we figured. Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember? So you and Ollie came to the podcast earlier this year.
Of course.
Very successful episode, by the way. It's about to make the top 10, so it will probably be there soon.
Celebrate that.
And when was that? That would have been probably like May that we recorded.
Early summer.
Yeah, right. Because we didn't meet at Shop. I was at Shop Talk US as well. And we didn't know each other.
I mean, that
there.
event is so huge, isn't it?
Yeah, as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, do you feel like anything's changed in the industry since early summer?
Oh, yes. I mean, there's so much that's going on. I think the big trends at the moment are about standardization of measurement. I think the IAB have done some brilliant work on that. There was a big conference in New York a few weeks ago where they published some of the standards for measurement, which was really good.
Yeah.
That's coming over to the UK as well. I know there's a big piece of work going on by IAB in Europe that we're a big part of, and I think that's really important because giving the transparency to brands about their spend and what they get back in terms of a return on investment is the number one thing we need to do. The second big thing is the digitization of the store.
Yeah.
So. In Boots, you'll have seen a big rollout of digital screens. We've seen it elsewhere in
Sainsbury's. Who's responsible for that?
Well, I couldn't tell you. Obviously, Ollie's been pushing us hard.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's been hugely successful. I mean, we rolled out, I think, hundreds of screens earlier in the summer, and they're sold out till early next year already.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and so there's a big interest in kind of the digitization, the opportunity to target in stores and use data to do it. And then the third big thing that's developing is the ability to use that first-party data right the way through the channel mix. So the technology is advancing. We're finding better ways to create match rates, which means that we can target people more efficiently. And things like, Boots Audience 360, which is a kind of first-party data engine, is growing, 4 or 5 times each year in terms of the value that's being invested in it. So this industry is moving so fast.
No, it's interesting because you're talking about 3 big buckets that I think we touched on first-party data on the podcast, but the others we didn't.
No, exactly.
Pretty amazing. And the thing is that I was speaking with someone yesterday, and in the West, there's not that many areas of growth in FMCG right now, apart from the ones that are inflation driven.
Yeah.
So I think that retail media also a lot of people are putting their eyes on it because it is that area that's definitely growing.
Totally, and especially for retailers. You know, when they've got cost pressure, their margins are tighter.
Yeah.
The ability to monetize their first-party data, the ability to grow their sales as a result of doing that is highly attractive, which is why it's advancing so quickly.
No, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because as well, since retailers are interested in it, the brands are as well, right?
Exactly.
So I think that if you asked the CEO a year ago, what's your retail media strategy? Probably most of them wouldn't.
You'd have to explain what retail media was.
Exactly. I guess that now it's not the same thing.
No. I mean, and it's been incredible for us because those conversations, I mean, we've been working in this industry for 15 years.
Yeah.
And for the first 12 of that, it was explaining what this thing was, how it would work. Now, the understanding's there. And so now it's a question of how do you make it work? What are the right structures you need? What are the right tech? What are the right capabilities? What are the right people? Which is great. It just makes it a lot easier.
Do you still feel like North America is very far ahead of you guys?
It's interesting in ways, yeah. I mean,
of you guys, of us guys, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, digitally, absolutely. Like the way that they use data out there, the online monetization, the offsite, I'd say it's probably 12 to 18 months ahead of where we are.
Okay.
But funnily enough, in store, it's probably 12 to 18 months behind where we are. There's not a huge amount of monetization that happens in a retail media sense in the US. They're investing a lot behind digitizing the stores now, whereas we were doing that last year.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because the nature of the retail estates is so different out there. Right? It's much more fragmented. There's many more stores. Tying it all together is a lot harder. Whereas in Europe, it's a bit tighter. The controls are a bit cleaner. And so, I'd say online, US far ahead. In store, actually, Europe and the UK especially is probably ahead of the curve. I'd say.
Oh, very interesting. Hadn't heard about that. What do you see as like when you speak with brands, with retailers? What's the biggest challenge for them right now when it comes to retail media?
Mostly it's about the structure of how the retail media centers and networks work within the retailer. So if you're a brand, you want to tie your investment into your total JBP, your joint business plan. You want to be able to talk retail media as part of a overall investment strategy to grow your sales. But often what we hear from brands is that the retail media networks are disjointed from the merchandisers or from the buyers, which means that they can't plan it together. And that restricts spend into retail media. But it also means that they can't maximize the effectiveness of that because you need to make sure it's lined up with your promos and with your events. And so from a brand point of view, the frustration is get me more integrated. Get involved in that. And that's what we try and do.
Because and retailers going a bit the other way where they want to separate the two businesses.
A little
so there's
bit.
a bit of a...
But the key, I think, is in how you do that structurally, right? So there's no problem in kind of like we do at Boots, having a Boots media group. But they need to be working hand in glove with the buyers every day. That team literally sits next to the buyers and goes into every meeting with them. Whereas if you separate it entirely and you break that link, it becomes very difficult to create kind of really clear holistic campaigns.
Are you seeing like in the brand side like new teams or new roles being created? As a headhunter, I'm biased to ask this question. Like any new roles being created that understand both like traditional account management and negotiation, trade marketing, and then also all this new USPs?
That's such an interesting question. So yes, and some of the big businesses like P&G now have for the first time ever a retail media director, right? And their scope is across the national account managers and the marketeers to try and bring those together. I think some of the challenges those brands have is where the money sits in the P&L and how they can move it back and forth. It creates challenges for them to move money out of TV and into retail media, for example. But we're starting to see that. Whether or not that actually moves into doing the traditional role of the national account manager, I'm not so sure. I think it's more of a kind of link between the two.
It feels a bit like it will be what trade marketing managers have been doing for the last X years, 10 years,
so
no, where
similar,
you're sitting between
yeah.
marketing, sales,
Yeah, but now with a bigger budget.
which is good. So, and what are you excited to see here at the event today?
Oh, so much going on. We've got an amazing amount of retailers coming today. Boots, Morrison's, Asda, Currys, TVG, Signet. So it'd be great to see all of those guys, and a lot of them will be on stage sharing some of their case studies.
Yeah.
We got Kroger over from the US.
Yes.
They're doing a section at the end, so they're going to share some of the learnings from the US. UNFI as well over from the US. We've got Pinterest here to share some trends for the future.
They're very excited about that. I'm always very quizzed about Pinterest.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I've seen the slides. It looks really good. And then also we've got the IAB here moderating a session on measurement. We've got some great sponsorship from a lot of tech partners here as well. So it's a totally packed agenda. Lots to get your teeth stuck into.
Very cool. And what's the future for the Retail Media Summit UK?
Well,
you already hinted at it.
I think we're going to have to do a bigger one.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like hopefully after today we'll get a bunch of feedback that will help us to shape the next one.
Yeah.
But certainly from the converstions I've had already and this morning, it feels like there's a lot of appetite to do this bigger and better. So we're announcing that we're going to run it again today, and then there'll be a link at the end of the presentation that maybe I'll share with you for people to to register their interest, and then we'll announce timings and where it is.
Okay. Do you think it will be like? Well, I was going to say this year, or next year, but it's October already.
Yeah,
so
it'll be next year. I mean, either summer or towards the back end of the year. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can put a link on the show
great.
notes so
if you
people
could,
can.
Yeah, that'd be great, and then we'll announce everything through there.
Will it be a UK thing still?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think there's an interest to do a kind of European one as well. Maybe we do too. But I think for now we're definitely doing a UK one.
Yeah.
Whether we do a European one as well, we'll have to decide based on the interest.
Yeah, I mean, based on our listener base, because the UK is the #1 country that listens to us the most.
Oh, okay.
But we also have a lot of listeners from Germany. We just had a huge episode with Albert Heijn in the Netherlands.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So how are you seeing this space evolve in the rest of Europe? And I know that there's a lot of speeds there as well, but what are you seeing?
It's similar to the UK, you know, it's really advancing. I was just chatting to the guys about some of the stuff that's going on at Ahold at the moment, and how they're growing quickly. You mentioned Albert Heijn, Carrefour doing some big stuff in France. You know, there's a huge amount of movement across the whole of Europe in this space, but very little communication between everybody.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
So maybe we do need an event.
Yeah, maybe we do. Well, let's see what this event has to offer.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much for coming.